Welcome back to Spiritual Summaries. If you're new or haven't yet, click subscribe and ring that bell so you won't miss our next video. Today we're tackling Genesis chapters 11 to 15, where we go from the Tower of Babel to God's promise to Abram. A quick note, we're using the King James Version for these summaries, but feel free to read from any version that resonates with you. Remember, the goal here is to ignite your interest, encouraging you to explore the full chapters for yourself. So, if you're ready to get started, smash that like button, and let's dive in. Genesis chapter 11 is a key chapter that transitions from the early accounts of humanity to the story of Abraham and his descendants. The chapter is divided into two main sections, the Tower of Babel and the genealogy leading to Abram, later renamed Abraham. Tower of Babel. Unified language. Initially, all people speak the same language. They settle in the land of Shinar, Babylon, and decide to build a city and a tower that reaches the heavens, aiming to make a name for themselves. Divine intervention. God observes their actions and remarks that if they can do this while speaking the same language, then nothing will be beyond their reach. To prevent this, God confuses their language, making it difficult for them to understand one another. Scattering. Because of the confusion, they stop building the tower and are scattered across the face of the earth. The city is named Babel, which sounds like the Hebrew word for confused. Genealogy. Shem to Abram. Lineage. The second half of the chapter lists the descendants from Shem to Abram, Abraham. This serves as a link between the earlier chapters and the story of the Israelites. Notable names. The genealogy includes notable figures like Shem, Arphaxad, and Terah, ending with Terah's sons, Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Family details. The chapter notes that Haran dies young and that Abram marries Sarai, later renamed Sarah, who is barren and cannot have children. Journey begins. Terah takes his family, including Abram, from Ur to go to Canaan. However, they settle in Haran, not to be confused with Terah's son, who died. And that's Genesis chapter 11. This chapter acts as a transition, shifting from broad stories about humanity to focus on the specific lineage that will lead to the Israelites. It sets the stage for Abram's journey and the covenant that God will make with him, which becomes central to the rest of the Bible. Genesis chapter 12 is a pivotal chapter that introduces Abram, later renamed Abraham, who becomes a central figure in the Bible. The chapter focuses on God's call to Abram and the beginnings of his journey. God's call and promise. Divine instructions. God tells Abram to leave his country, his people, and his father's household for a land that God will show him. Grand promises. God promises to make Abram into a great nation, to bless him, make his name great, and to bless those who bless him and curse those who curse him. Through Abram, all families of the earth will be blessed. Abram's journey. Obedience. Abram obeys God, leaves Haran, and sets out for Canaan. He is 75 years old at this point. He takes his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot with him, along with their possessions and people they acquired in Haran. Arrival in Canaan. Abram travels through the land to Shechem, where God appears to him again and reiterates the promise to give this land to his offspring. Abram builds an altar there to worship God. Movement and altars. Further travel. Abram moves to the hill country east of Bethel and pitches his tent, building another altar to God and calling upon his name. Egyptian sojourn. Due to a famine, Abram goes down to Egypt. Fearing that the Egyptians will kill him to take his beautiful wife Sarai, he asks her to say she is his sister. Deception in Egypt. Pharaoh's interest. Sarai's beauty catches the attention of Pharaoh, who takes her into his household and treats Abram well because of her. However, God sends plagues on Pharaoh's house. Revelation and expulsion. Pharaoh finds out the truth about Sarai and confronts Abram. He then orders them to leave Egypt, but lets them keep their possessions. And that's Genesis chapter 12. This chapter marks a significant shift in the narrative, focusing on the covenant relationship between God and Abram. It sets the stage for the unfolding drama of the Israelite people and God's plan for humanity. Genesis chapter 13 continues the story of Abram, later renamed Abraham, after he and his family leave Egypt and return to Canaan. The chapter also focuses on the separation between Abram and his nephew Lot. Return to Canaan. Back to Bethel. After leaving Egypt, Abram, Sarai, and Lot go back to Canaan, specifically to Bethel, where Abram had previously built an altar. He worships God there. Prosperity and problem. Wealth accumulates. Abram and Lot have accumulated so much livestock and material possessions that the land can't support both of their households living together. Conflict. The herdsmen of Abram and Lot begin to quarrel over grazing land. This tension prompts Abram to propose a solution. The separation. Abram's proposal. Abram suggests that they should separate to avoid further conflict. He gives Lot the first choice of the land. If Lot chooses to go left, Abram will go right. If Lot goes right, Abram will go left. Lot's choice. Lot chooses the fertile Jordan Valley near Sodom and Gomorrah, which are described as wicked cities, while Abram settles in the land of Canaan. God's renewed promise. Divine reiteration. After Lot departs, God speaks to Abram again. God promises to give Abram all the land he can see and to make his offspring as numerous as the dust of the earth. New home. Abram moves his tent to Hebron and builds another altar to God there. And that's Genesis chapter 13. This chapter shows how Abram handles conflict wisely and how God continues to guide and promise blessings for him. The separation of Abram and Lot sets the stage for each to play different roles in the unfolding biblical narrative. Genesis chapter 14 tells the tale of war, rescue, and the first appearance of a mysterious figure named Melchizedek. The chapter follows Abram's military venture to rescue his nephew Lot. The War of the Kings. 4 verses 5. A coalition of 4 kings goes to war against another group of 5 kings. The latter group includes the king of Sodom, where Lot resides. Defeat and captivity. The 4 kings defeat the 5, looting Sodom and capturing Lot and his possessions in the process. Abram the rescuer. News reaches Abram. A survivor of the battle informs Abram that his nephew Lot has been captured. Abram's response. Abram musters his trained men, 318 in total, and pursues the 4 kings to rescue Lot. Victory. Abram's forces attack by night, defeating the 4 kings and recovering all the loot, along with Lot and his possessions. Meeting Melchizedek. King and priest. As Abram returns, he is met by Melchizedek, the king of Salem, later known as Jerusalem, and also a priest of God Most High. Blessing and tithes. Melchizedek blesses Abram, and Abram gives him 1/10 of all the spoils. Abram and the king of Sodom. An offer. The king of Sodom offers Abram all the looted goods, asking only for the return of his people. Abram's refusal. Abram refuses to take anything except what his men have already eaten and the share due to his allies, stating that he wants no one to say, "I made Abram rich." And that's Genesis chapter 14. It's an action-packed chapter featuring warfare, daring rescue, and the introduction of the enigmatic Melchizedek. Through it all, Abram exhibits leadership, bravery, and principled integrity. Genesis chapter 15 is a profound chapter that focuses on God's covenant with Abram, later renamed Abraham. It delves into the promises God makes and how Abram's faith is counted as righteousness. God's assurance. Vision. God appears to Abram in a vision, telling him not to be afraid and promising him a great reward. Abram's concern. Despite God's earlier promises, Abram is concerned because he has no children and his servant Eliezer stands to inherit his wealth. Promise of an heir. Divine reiteration. God assures Abram that Eliezer won't be his heir. Instead, a child coming from his own body will be his heir. Count the stars. God takes Abram outside and tells him to look up at the sky and count the stars, saying that's how numerous his descendants will be. Abram's faith. Belief. Abram believes God's promise, and this faith is counted to him as righteousness, establishing him as a man of faith in the biblical narrative. The covenant ritual. Animal sacrifice. To seal the covenant, God instructs Abram to bring certain animals and birds and cut them in half, laying the halves opposite each other. Deep sleep. A deep sleep and a terrifying darkness come upon Abram. God foretells that Abram's descendants will be enslaved and mistreated in a foreign land for 400 years, but afterward, they will come out with great possessions. Land promise. God reaffirms that he will give Abram's descendants the land from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates. Completion. A smoking pot and a flaming torch, representing God, pass between the pieces of the animals, signifying the completion of the covenant. And that's Genesis chapter 15. This chapter is central to understanding the biblical themes of faith, promise, and covenant. It sets the stage for the unfolding story of the Israelites and their special relationship with God. And that wraps up our quick journey through Genesis chapters 11 to 15. From the Tower of Babel to God's covenant with Abram, these chapters are packed with foundational stories that have influenced cultures and religions for millennia. As always, these summaries aim to spark your interest. We're using the King James Version here, but the ultimate goal is for you to delve into the Bible yourself, whichever version speaks to you. If you found this video helpful or intriguing, please give it a like and share it with others who might benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to stay updated on our next spiritual deep dive. Thanks for being a part of Spiritual Summaries. Your path to a deeper understanding is only a chapter away, in your chosen version of the Bible. See you next time.